Welcome to the Victress Podcast. I'm Dr. Lisa Marino.
And I'm Erin Hazelbaker.
So we're really excited to come together and really focus on faith, family, and functional medicine.
Exactly. And in this podcast, we hope to be able to answer some questions that people have been bringing to us over and over again, but again, from the perspective of healing mind, body, and soul.
So we're going to be talking today about why I don't trust my doctor.
Gosh, what a prolific question right now in 2022. So we're recording this in the summer of 2022, and we've just kind of gone through these past couple years of craziness and with the pandemic, and we are getting this question so often. We're learning about folks that just haven't been able to trust their doctor or any medical professional they feel like for many years, but then all of that was exacerbated these last few years where maybe they called in with questions and then never heard back. Maybe they wondered, do I have COVID? And their doctor would say, well, I can't treat you. Maybe there was something that happened along the way in those past 2 years that they just haven't felt heard. And so we really wanted to talk about that today.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the real problem is we're only getting sicker, right? So with COVID, we realized, more studies were coming out that only 12% of Americans are actually metabolically healthy, and we're going to talk about what that means, right? So we're feeling the effects of autoimmune conditions. We're feeling the effects of infertility. But why are we not getting any better? And why have we lost so much trust in the healthcare system? And what now can we do about that? So we certainly want you to have practical steps of how to go forward and how to reestablish this relationship, because we want you to understand that the evidence is out there, the solutions are out there, and unfortunately right now we're in a time where we have to advocate for ourselves. Unless you can find that great provider, and certainly that's what we are trying to do as a practice in our area in Ohio, we are trying to do that, but it's really hard. Otherwise, you're advocating for yourself. You're spending hours poring over, your symptoms or probably your child's symptoms, trying to figure out what's going on with them. So why have we lost such trust in the healthcare system?
Well, and I think we can even back up a little bit, Lisa, and just kind of talk about, full disclosure, for Lisa and I are sisters, and we have in our family, our other sister is an ER doctor, our sister-in-law is a rehab doctor, so we're not against conventional medicine by any stretch. We actually are advocating for it in many situations. So I think it's important that people understand that. We're not asking you to say, okay, we need to completely be done with the healthcare system. We're just trying to figure out how can we make this better. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's so challenging to watch. Our two older sisters are physicians themselves, and so to see the strain, they love what they do as physicians.
Absolutely.
And they're really good at it. Mm-hmm. But it's so challenging because they're really abreast of the knowledge and research and what is up to date. No pun intended, but then they have this strain of taking care of their families, and we feel that everybody does. But in order for them to be able to apply this knowledge and really listen, they lose out on that family time. So It's either spend 2 extra hours in the office, and now I've lost. So now you have this, contradicting kind of, life balance that the healthcare system currently is set up for. Get as many people in as possible, and so it doesn't allow them to listen to you. It doesn't allow them to have good work-life balance, and try as hard as they can. There's such a burden there.
Exactly. I think that's just one of the reasons why folks have kind of lost faith in the medical system and in maybe their own particular doctor. Maybe their doctor doesn't have the ability to do that anymore. Maybe they say, you know what, I have to cut it off. At 5 o'clock, I'm done. I need to shut it down. And we don't blame them for that. We totally understand that. That's how we've set up our business so that we're able to kind of shut it down and be with our families. So we understand that. But I think, other questions that we hear a lot, and really that just kind of speak to the problems within healthcare itself, one of the main issues is that they don't listen to me, or they only have 5 minutes with me. So Lisa and I have done a lot of research in this area because we think it's so important that people understand if you are in traditional healthcare systems, so that means, you use your insurance and you show up at your doctor's office, the national average that the doctor spends with you is 8 to 13 minutes a visit. So that's we all understand that is just not enough time for them to be able to really understand you and get to know you. Now, again, you may have a phenomenal doctor, and that's what we talk about with our sisters all the time. We know they're so wonderful and they spend so much time with their patients, but that's at their own expense. That's at their time and expense taken away from their family. So again, national average, 8 to 13 minutes for primary care.
Yeah, and there's also been studies done that, even in the employer space, that most employees want some sort of holistic provider. It's about 70%, would say, yeah, I would really like to have somebody that understands my diet, my nutrition, supplements, understands things from a bigger, broader picture.
Sure.
And again, the way that, traditional healthcare right now is set up, what do we say? Only like 2 hours of nutrition are plugged into their training. So you really have to seek it out. If a physician, a provider, or a nurse practitioner is going to learn more, you really have to invest that time yourself on things like holistic practice, for example.
Yeah. So, again, when we just kind of circle back to, what are we talking about? What are we hoping to get at? What we understand is that, especially after COVID, they ran this survey, and 41% of Americans lost trust in their doctor during COVID. And the biggest reason, again, kind of getting at that issue again, is infrequent communication, both about COVID-19, but then slow adoption of virtual care. So they want to be able to access their physician outside of that appointment. So I don't want to just have to sit in front of you for those 8 to 13 minutes to be able to access you. We understand that, our physicians are humans as well. They want to be able to go home to their families. They don't have time to always be responding. But at the same time, there's got to be a better way, right? There's got to be a better way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think being able to have an open and honest conversation with your physician, and again, like we've already said, it is challenging, and especially with COVID-19, we didn't know what was going to happen the next day, the next week, what was the research going to say. We were going based off a lot of trying to use common sense. And so it was frustrating to not be able to have those open, honest conversations to say, well, wait a minute, what about this way? And what about my values in this direction?
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that, of course, as, Roe versus Wade has just been overturned. And now we have all of these 25 physician organizations that are supporting abortion, that are coming out that are against the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Again, you feel like you cannot take that view, to a physician. And again, there are many amazing doctors out there, but in the majority is a challenging thing to bring that belief to your physician and say, hey, I believe this. How can you help me in this instance? And that's really the first thing that you need to be able to do is find a provider that you can say, hey, this is what I believe. I understand that you recommend I do something different, but because I believe this way, how else can I be healthy? And there are a multitude of things that you could do besides get vaccinated and still protect yourself. And we're experiencing that now. We're seeing the effects of that now. To say, hey, this is, upholding the sanctity of life is more important to me. And so now what else do we need to be able to do? We need to be able to look at vitamin D levels. What was the statistic that 0% mortality if vitamin D was in an optimal range? So are you checking for that? And that's 50. Just one. That's just one example. Above 50 is what your vitamin D level should be. So that's just one example. But in order to bring this to your provider, can I communicate with them? Can I talk? And be able to relay my values with them and still have options.
Yeah. So what Lisa and I ended up doing, with our own families, and then just kind of as we've done some research over time, is that we ended up stumbling as a family upon a direct primary care model. So we kind of want to talk about that and just explain that a little bit, because it might be a model that might be best suited for you and your family, especially if you find yourself asking some of these same questions that many Americans are and that Lisa and I were asking ourselves. So let's talk a little bit more about that, Lisa. Let's explain that model.
The accessibility of direct primary care off the bat, number one, I would say, direct primary care is a direct relationship. You cut out insurance, it becomes, cash pay, direct pay model, monthly membership. So you have complete access to them. And so I think our nurse practitioner, Danielle, would agree, that, text messaging is to her directly is probably the most common form of communication that she receives.
Exactly.
Whether it's middle of the night, whether it's during the day. So number one, that solves that accessibility problem of can I get directly to someone? And like I said, we're spoiled with having physicians, in our back pocket in our family, but it's essentially having the same thing. It's like having a family member that will get back to you quicker, as your healthcare provider to get that knowledge.
Exactly.
What is this rash? Is this something I need to worry about? Why can't I get rid of this headache?
Right.
So-and-so's got a stomach ache and it's not going away. All of the things that go through our mind that we try to take on ourselves, it brings back that relationship, with your provider.
Well, and then, the other part of it too that's so important to us is making sure that people understand that this is really an affordable option. What we get the most often is that folks are afraid of going outside of the insurance model because they don't really understand it, right? So we've been brainwashed essentially into this system where it's like, oh, I have to use my, fill in the blank with a big, big healthcare or big insurance company name. I have to use this, and then I will get reimbursed for it. And so what Lisa and I often talk about is just, there's so many other things that we could bring up to talk about this. But, when we're talking about, the health, quote unquote, of our vehicle, our car, we don't expect our car insurance to pay for that. When we talk about, the health of our home, our air conditioning, our roof, we don't expect our homeowner's insurance to pay for that.
I didn't think about air conditioning. That's like a pretty important thing right now. Like that's just not covered under your homeowner's insurance.
Right. But we've kind of been brainwashed to think like, oh, well, yep, my healthcare is all going to be taken care of under this. And what we're understanding and what people are, kind of coming to us with and what we know, from our own families is that healthcare currently, the way that it is really sick care. It provides for you when you are ill, which is good. We want
and
that.
And we're really good at that.
Yeah, and we're really good at that. We have, I was listening to, a great talk the other day, and they talked about, in the United States, we are the best in the world at emergency room care. And I believe that 100%. Hands down, we are the best. Where we fail is beyond that point. So how are we taking those patients that are in the emergency room and kind of going from there? So anyway, back to, finances, so we don't get too far off track. When we're looking at it, most of our other direct primary cares that we know, the way that we priced it, we wanted to make sure that direct primary care was cheaper than the cost of your cell phone bill. Because if you can pay for your cell phone, then you can pay for direct primary care. And so as we kind of look at that, across the continuum and across the United States with direct primary care, that is pretty much going to be the model.
Yeah, and it should take care of about 85% of your healthcare needs, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the national average, again, that if you're able to, kind of swallow all that up, especially as an employer, think about that. If you're able to swallow up 85% of your folks' needs, with this direct primary care model, think of how much you can shrink that healthcare expenditure that is going up and up and up every year, too.
And we talked about the visit length being an issue, feeling like you don't have enough time.
Right.
I even go to the doctor sometimes, or specialists or, what have you. And it's like, I had conversations or I had questions in my head. I was prepared and I still didn't even get them out. Or I thought, man, I forgot to ask that question. Mm-hmm. And so number one, you can text or email later. Number two, we have it built out and most direct primary cares have it out. Built in 30 to 60 minutes of a visit. So you have time to think, you have time to converse. They are understanding and asking you about all facets, stress, sleep, and you have plenty of time to address those questions. So the time issue is totally removed. I think it's something like, 240 minutes on average per year that a direct primary care physician spends with their patients versus 20 minutes a year in a traditional model. So the time alone removes so many barriers to saying, you know what, my gut does feel a little bit off. What do you think about this? Why is my stomach starting to hurt? Mm-hmm. And all of the things that we're seeing expound into full-blown autoimmune disease, thyroid issues, heading into diabetes, all of the big things that we know we are not doing a great job of addressing chronic disease. Those things get picked up on sooner. Exactly. And now you've removed the barriers to have a communication, with your physician, a conversation. And they have the time to look it up. They have the time to say, you know what, I don't know a lot about that, but I am going to go look up the studies.
Exactly.
And I'm going to say, this is what kind of diet I think we should look towards, or this is, the direction that I think we should go. And that is another huge, amazing fact because Now you have the time to stay abreast of the research and look at things and consult directly with a specialist.
And that's where I'm going to jump in too, because that was, for my family, the most important factor. We ended up having, our son had a seizure condition, and we couldn't get to the bottom of it. And we kept, we would talk to the neurologist, we would talk to other folks. And then when we brought in this direct primary care physician to help us out, she was able to, I was essentially able to be a mom again. I didn't have to fight for every single thing for him. I could go into the appointments and know that if I forgot something, I could communicate with my direct primary care physician. She would get on the phone with that neurologist and say, hey, we're confused about this. Can we try this? Have you looked at this? And really take the bull by the horn. So I could just be a mom and just bring my son to the appointments and really just kind of take care of him in the way that I knew how. So I think having that advocate there is what becomes so important too. So again, we here at Victress do things even a bit different than some other direct primary cares. We do take more of a holistic focus. We do make sure that our providers are functional medicine trained so that they have that background. But you need to figure out for your family what's most important for you. That might not be as vital to you as making sure that your physician or your nurse practitioner has the same values that you do. Is that what's most important to you? Is it most important to you that you just have somebody that's able to advocate for you, that you can reach after hours, et cetera? So I think that's important that we, kind of talk about those things and that we understand that it can be different. It doesn't have to be the same way that it's always been. We can turn this around, and we are. There are thousands of direct primary care practices open in America now. We actually went online and kind of did some research for one of the companies we'd been working with, and they had 9 random locations, and we were able to find direct primary cares within great distance for those folks to be able to reach direct primary care. So just keep an eye open. It's just an awesome model and something that we need to all be kind of looking for, especially as healthcare and well care should continue to be our focus.
Yeah, if you do want to find a direct primary care in your area, they've made it really simple. The website for that is dpcfrontier.com, and they have a little tab there it's called the Mapper. And so you can plug in your address or city, and I guarantee you, within about 30 to 45 minutes at least, within driving distance. So that is accessible to you. Again, just, practical steps. Make sure you can have these conversations with your doctor.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid to, revisit what kind of healthcare setup that you have. This is changing. It is coming. If your benefits are tied to your employer, don't be afraid to bring this to your HR director or your owner or president, whoever runs your benefits. Bring this model of direct primary care, because this is really changing the way that healthcare is done in America. It is broken, and we do have a great solution for it. So you can bring direct primary care. On our website alone, we have a return on investment calculator. We have some videos that are great set up for employers, and for patients. So that's just victresshealth.com. And so you can share those things with them. They want to know what you want. We hear it over and over again when we talk with, HR, and we talked with benefits advisors, and they want to know what you want. And certainly if you're, dissatisfied, this is a great option. And they are looking for solutions. So that is the good thing. They're looking for ways to make healthcare better.
Exactly.
It's really exciting. But make sure you have those conversations with your doctor. I highly recommend you checked out the dpcfrontier.com to find a DPC in your area. We have a free consult that if you'd like to meet with our providers. That's just victresshealth.com/free consult. You're welcome to sign up, meet and greet with one of us or one of our providers. And we're really excited for the future.
Yeah. And just continuing to make sure that as we, go about this, that our focus continues to be on well care, throughout the continuum. We totally appreciate what we're able to do through conventional medicine to allow us to be well. So just making sure that your provider is accessing that for you. And then finally, the other part that we love about direct primary care, just so you can kind of keep another thing in your back pocket, is the transparency of pricing. Yeah. It's all laid out. There is no question. Well, how much are they going to upcharge for this? And how much are we going to charge for that? No, it's all laid out. You'll know how much it's going to cost you if your son needs stitches or if your daughter needs, a strep throat, test. So as we go through that, I think that's so important, especially as parents ourselves, just kind of thinking through those flat costs. So we really look forward to hearing from you. If you have questions, feel free to reach out on that victresshealth.com free consult link, and I'll be happy to chat with you.
Yes, thanks so much. Go easy on your doctors. They're overworked. They're overstressed.
Yeah.
We get that perspective. So, thanks for joining us today.